about how your mother influenced you in your life. And mothers, how you're influencing your children in their lives. The title of my sermon, if you don't already know it, is A Mother's Influence. I've used this illustration before, but I really love this illustration. It was a story that was in a column written by Irma Bombeck, and it tells of God in the act of creating a mother. She says that on that day God created mothers, He already had worked long overtime. And an angel said to him, "Lord, you are sure spending a lot of time on this one." The Lord turned and said, "Have you read the specs on this model? She's supposed to be completely washable, but not plastic. She's to have 180 moving parts, all of them replaceable. She is to have a kiss that will heal everything from a broken leg to a broken heart. She is to have a lap that will disappear when she stands up. She is to be able to function on black coffee and leftovers. And she is supposed to have 6 pairs of hands." 6 pairs of hands, the angel said. "That's impossible." "It's not the 6 pair of hands that bothers me," said the Lord. "It's the 3 pairs of eyes she has. She's supposed to have 1 pair that sees through closed doors so that whenever she says, 'What are you kids doing in there?' she already knows what they're doing in there. She has another pair in the back of her head to see all the things she's not supposed to see, but must see. And then she has 1 pair right in the front and can look at a child that's goofed up and communicate love, understanding, without saying a word." "That's too much," said the angel. "You can't put that much in 1 model. Why don't you rest for a while and resume your creating tomorrow?" "No, I can't," said the Lord. "I'm close to creating someone very much like myself. I've already come up with a model who can heal herself when she's sick, who can feed a family of 6 with 1 pound of hamburger, and who can persuade a 9-year-old to take a shower." Then the angel looked at the model of motherhood a little more closer and said, "She's too soft." "Oh, but she is tough," said the Lord. "You'd be surprised at how much this mother can do." "Can she think?" asked the angel. "Not only can she think," said the Lord, "but she can reason and compromise and persuade." Then the angel reached over and touched her cheek. "This one has a leak," he said. "I told you you couldn't put this much in 1 model." "That's not a leak," said the Lord. "That's a tear." "What's a tear?" asked the angel. "Well, it's for joy, for sadness, and for sorrow, for disappointment, for pride." The angel said, "You're a genius." And the Lord said, "Oh, but I didn't put it there. My mother taught me religion. She used to say, you better pray that'll come out of the carpet. My mother taught me logic. Because I said so, that's why. If you go down 680, you see the sign, that electronic sign they have down there. When I went home from church on Wednesday night, it said, 'Put down the phone, Mom.' And I mean it. That's what it said. My mother taught me to be a contortionist. Will you look at the dirt on the back of your neck? My mother taught me stamina. You'll sit there until all that spinach is gone." A woman columnist from the Los Angeles Times wrote about the influence her mother had on her. She said her mama taught her several rules for being a perfect lady. Mind your manners and always write thank you notes. Brush your hair, appearance matters. Never marry a man in order to change him. Stand up straight and clean your fingernails. Eat everything on your plate. Remember the starving children in the world. Speak up. If you ask for something, you may get it. If you don't ask, you may not get it. Keep your mouth shut and your legs crossed. Don't ever do anything you wouldn't want me to do. Mothers have a powerful influence on their children, and it reflects in the amount of attention mothers get instead of fathers. Do you realize that there are more cards sent on Mother's Day than on Father's Day? There are more phone calls made on Mother's Day to moms than there are on Father's Day to dads. Granted, back in the days before the cell phone, half of those calls were made collect, but there's still more calls made to mothers on Mother's Day than there are fathers on Father's Day. One man complained about this discrepancy, noting that he literally poured himself into his son's life. He taught him how to play baseball, basketball, football, took him hunting, fishing, taught him how to drive, and then when the boy went off to college and was playing for football for a college team, when the TV camera came up and was shined on him, what did he say? "Hi, Mom." Their influence on a child's life is very powerful. The Bible tells several stories about women that give us deep insight into what moms are capable and willing to do for their children. For example, Rebekah, the mother of Jacob, manipulated her husband to make sure Jacob received the blessing instead of his brother Esau. Moses' mother, Jochebed, to avoid having him killed by Pharaoh's death squad, hid her baby until she could no longer hide him, and then she placed him in an ark and placed it in the bulrushes near the Pharaoh's daughters where she bathed. And finally, she arranged to become the son's teacher and guardian, even when he was taken into Pharaoh's court. Then there's a story of the two women who argued over a child in front of King Solomon. One mother said the child was hers, the other insisted it was hers. When Solomon ordered the baby cut in half and each half given to the mothers, the false mother was delighted, but the real mother was willing to surrender her child rather than see him killed. And then in the New Testament, we see the mother of James and John asking Jesus if they can be seated next to him in his kingdom, in the kingdom of God. Again and again in scriptures, mothers are shown as driven to protect and promote their children. These mothers want their children to do more than just survive. They want their children to succeed. In fact, this is because God has placed within women the power and the desire to protect and promote their children and make them do well in life. Mothers have often sacrificed just about everything to make sure that their children succeed in school, sports, finding a career, a good career, or making sure they marry the right kind of person when they grow up. Mothers are often the individuals that mold and shape their children's character and future. Paul recognized this when he told Timothy that he had been reminded of his sincere faith, which he first learned from his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. That's found in 2 Timothy. In other words, if you look at Timothy, he was the kind of man, and the reason he was that kind of man was because he had the grandmother and the mother that he had. Their faith and love for God shaped Timothy into being a powerful worker for the Lord. What this tells me is women have an amazing potential to affect the lives of their children and grandchildren. And let's face it, it's an awesome responsibility. And I'm pretty sure that the mothers in this room don't take that responsibility lightly. In 1995, Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, wrote in his book, The title of the book was Well Done. He said, when I was 11 years old, my adoptive grandmother took me to Michigan Gull Lake to be baptized by immersion. I really felt that I was accepted by God when I was baptized. But what I remember most about my baptism was that my grandma, Minnie, made it happen. For her, Christianity meant more than just doctrine talked about on Sunday mornings. It meant teaching your grandson about faith. A godly mother or grandmother can make it happen for their children, but they can only make it happen if they make God the central focus of their lives and make Him their main priority in shaping those lives of their children, their kids. There was a story told about a mother and a son that stopped on a highway because there was ducks crossing the street. A mother with her little ducklings. The cars all stopped, and as she made it across the street, she just kept on marching up the street. Not looking back, there was a gutter there that her webbed feet covered, but the children were way too small for that. And all the babies fell in the grate. Plop, plop, plop. But the mother just went on because she thought the ducks were following her. That's how a mother is. A mother leads, but they pay attention too, don't get me wrong. But the idea is, you need your children to follow you. But what you have to make sure is you're going the right direction yourself. You have to make sure that your life is already right. I believe it's possible for a mother to strive and strain and struggle to lead her children to safety, as that mother duck thought she was doing, and ultimately fail to accomplish her goals. It's possible to make sure her son and daughters are successful in school, sports, career, and marriage, and still fail to give the sons and daughters the most important direction they can have ever in their lives. To paraphrase Mark 8:36, what shall it profit a mother if her son and daughter shall gain the whole world, then lose their souls? My point is, it's possible to love your child so much that you want them to have all the best of what this world can give and can offer, and fail to make sure that they have the best that God can offer. The true tragedy would be for our children to have bookcases loaded with awards and trophies, walls lined with diplomas and certificates of achievement, but to have hearts practically empty of God and faith. But Timothy didn't have that problem. Timothy had a godly mother and a godly grandmother who had their priorities straight. Timothy had a mother and a grandmother who handed down a sincere faith. They gave Timothy something that was precious in God's sight, and as a result, they gave this young man an inheritance that would last not just for this lifetime, but for eternity. An inheritance that would still be with him long after all the world's awards and honors have turned to dust. Near a church in Kansas, there was a print of two baby feet in the cement of the sidewalk, with the toes pointing towards the church. It said that 20 years ago, when the sidewalk was being laid, a mother asked for permission to stand her baby boy in the wet cement. The tracks are still there, plainly today. That mother had wanted her little boy to start right. That's the kind of parent that not just the mothers, but all of us, our fathers and all of us, should strive to be. We realize, of course, cultivating a spiritual foundation to our kids by setting their feet in concrete before the church is kind of a lame way of doing it, but that's the kind of motivation that drove Timothy's mother and grandmother. That's the kind of mindset that inspired them to make sure Timothy had a sincere faith. And how did they do that? How did Lois and Eunice hand down their faith to Timothy? I don't know how they did it, but I do know how a mom can do it to their children. And that's, Mom, read to them from the Bible. Mothers, pray for them. Mothers, pray with them. Frankly, I know my wife prays for each one of our children every day. She prays for our family. She prays about our relationship to God. And I know she prays for this church. Mothers, if it's important to you, it will be important to your children. Unfortunately, mothers are usually the ones that communicate their faith to their children in ways that fathers have a hard time doing. And I believe that a mother who makes this priority in their lives can do more to place their sincere faith in the hearts of their children than even the best man can do. I believe this potential is why mothers have such a treasured place in the hearts of so many of their children as they grow up. There's a story about 4 preachers discussing the merits of various translations of the Bible. One liked the King James Version best because of its simple, beautiful English. Another liked the New American Version because it was closer to the original Hebrew and Greek. Still another liked the Contemporary Version because of its up-to-date vocabulary. The 4th minister was silent for a moment, then said, "I like my mother's translation best." Surprised, the other 3 men said they didn't know that his mother had translated the Bible. "Yes," he replied, "she translated it into life, and it was the most convincing translation I've ever seen." And in closing, I want to read something that Abraham Lincoln wrote. He was one of the greatest presidents our country has ever known. And he himself believed that his mother's faith had a strong role in developing the kind of man that he became. Even though his mother died when he was young, he always remembered how he'd seen God in her life. How he'd heard her read to him stories from the Bible. And how he listened to her as she taught him how to live a godly life. When she died, these were her parting words. "I'm going away from you, Abraham, and I shall not return. I know you will be a good boy. I want you to live as I have taught you, to love your heavenly Father and keep his commandments." Until his death, Lincoln remembered these words. And he remembered that he had solemnly promised that he would do just that. Think about it for a moment. How are you influencing your children? How are you influencing your grandchildren? How are we influencing our friends and relatives? How are we doing that? Are we influencing them in the way that they should go? If there's anyone here this morning that needs to be baptized, we can surely do that for you. Or if you've been baptized and you have kind of lost your way and need to get back, or if you're a parent that needs to get stronger in the way that you're raising your children, the way you're guiding them, we can also pray with you. Please come as we stand and sing.